So hi, welcome to a fresh new channel. It's actually snowing outside and it's pretty cold inside, and I thought it's a very good time to do a little review because I'm not going riding. We're talking about motorcycles here, and I've actually got a Dutch language sister channel to this one, and recently I did a video reviewing all the bikes I've ridden so far, and I thought we'll try it in English and see if anyone wants to give it a gander. And if so, maybe we'll do an English channel and do some more videos as well. So what I'd like to do is have a look at all the bikes I've ridden extensively or have some experience with, and go through them chronologically from the first one I rode to the last one, and maybe we can do a small ranking. So which one would I pick first if I had them all in the garage, which I don't. I only have a single one, but we'll see. So let's get right to it. Actually, to be honest, the first bike I ever rode on was my dad's Yamaha XS400, but I was 14 I think, and I only rode on the back, and he then got a Yamaha Diversion 600, the red one with the bikini fairing. But we'll come back to that later. I never rode it myself, and my first lesson was on a Kawasaki ER6N, and that was a fun bike, I have to say. I was very impressed by it. It's naked, of course. I'm a bit tall for naked bikes, but it's a very good bike. Would I buy it? No, I don't think so. Same engine as the Versys. It's a twin cylinder, which I like, but not too much character, so we'll put that somewhere near the bottom. We're going through it quick, as you notice. The default bike to learn on in the Netherlands is CB500. Probably still. Very good bike, very bland, indestructible. If I had this and an ER6N, I'd pick the ER6. It's very easy, even though that's a very good bike and very comfortable, maybe even more comfortable than the ER6. Then after a bunch of lessons, I found a Yamaha Diversion, but not the red one with the bikini fairing that my dad had, but a naked one, the more modern one. And it's a 4-cylinder 600cc-ish naked bike that rode very, very, very well. It was actually the easiest bike to put through its paces while learning. So we have to do slaloms and stoppies, and well, not stoppies on the front wheel, but you have to do emergency stops, that sort of thing. The Diversion was the best bike I rode when learning. But I like twin cylinders better than 4 cylinders, so I would put the ER6 above the Diversion. But you can see I'm starting off low-ish and we'll build up from there. Then there was also, while learning, they had a Suzuki Gladius that I sat on. And I wasn't really impressed by the look of it, but I had to take the bike one day and completely fell in love with it. So it's basically an SV650, the Gladius. But I loved it so much that I actually bought an SV650, the older version, the 2007, black on black. I was smitten with the bike. It was great. It was just perfect. I still think it's an awesome bike. Only downside for me was that I'm a bit tall for it, and I had jumped off a boat the year before and got somewhat stuck on the way off and overstretched my knee. So my knees don't like really small bikes, not boats neither, but bikes neither. I loved my SV650, so it definitely goes above everything else because I bought one and I had it for a year or two, loved it to bits. But because I couldn't ride it for much longer than maybe an hour before my knees started to ache, I wanted something bigger and got the bike that I always loved, the Yamaha TDM. Old one from 92, red with the round headlights, 850cc, enough horsepower, great bike, especially for tall people. Absolutely loved it to bits. Perfect for me, pretty much. Except maybe it was a bit top heavy, maybe it was a bit much for me with a little bit of experience only. Definitely a bike I could buy again. Maybe even the 900, though I think the original with the round headlights is a lot prettier. The bikini fairing doesn't make any sense, by the way, because it exactly funnels the air into the bottom of my helmet. Also, so it's the noisiest bike I've ever ridden, which is stupid because it's pretty, but okay. Then I had that for a year and a half, I think. I had to do a lot of work to it because it was 92, it was an oldie, and thought I came into some money, I'll get something more modern with fuel injection and whatnot. And I found the Aprilia Pegaso Strada, which is quite affordable for what it is. It's a single cylinder. I think this one is, you call it a supermoto because it's got small wheels, fuel injection, the engine that's also in the Yamaha XT, and the tenor is 660, not the 700, but the 660. Loved the bike, very flickable, very light. My knees didn't quite agree, so I got me a rally seat, which was a bit taller, very narrow and stiff, but much, much better. I still think that's probably going on top and staying there. I might get one again, but I think if I were to get one again, I wouldn't get the Strada version, the supermoto version. I would get the trail version, because the trail has a bigger front wheel. If it's got the same engine, I'd be tempted to take it on some dirt roads, maybe. Even if I can't find any in Holland, I think I know one or two. There's not many around here, but I think I'd love to try that bike. Sadly though, we came to a point at home that we needed a second car, and we didn't have much money. So I found someone who wanted to trade my new Strada for an older Aprilia Pegaso, which was the one with the Rotax engine. And so that's the one with the flying mythos, this logo, sort of, if you can see it. I didn't like it. It was boring, you know. I rode to work, did a lot of highway miles, 100 kilometers an hour, and it just ran out of steam. You know, you go 100 on it and it'll do it all day, but you'll never feel like you've got a little left over. The Strada, you'd go 150 and you'd go, yeah, it'd go a bit more. This one, you go 100 and I'd be like, no, I didn't like it. So that one, the weird thing is, I'll put it down here, even below the SV, but it was a lot more comfortable than the SV. And I might, if you were to say you have to go cross country and there's unpaved stuff to do and you're on a very tight budget, that's a very cheap bike and it'll do it comfortably. So if I were to travel and I had a budget, I'd pick it. But if I had an SV and a Pegaso in my garage, which I don't have a garage, I'd pick the SV. So I thought, okay, this is not the right single cylinder. I did some test riding on the old KLR 650 and then the Tengai version, which is a bit more Afrika twinish. I love that bike. It's really good. I think that goes somewhere in here. I didn't ride very long on it. It's very tractor-ish, but ultra comfortable for my knees. It's like you're almost standing up straight when you're sitting. It's really good. I love the KLR. I just haven't found one in my price bracket. I would want the Tengai version, not the one with the high front fender, but the more Afrika twin looking one. That's really pretty. I would buy a KLR one day. I'll probably get one. So I still owned the Pegaso and I didn't like it. And then I saw someone online who had a bike that I was interested in, but always thought of like, yeah, but you're not really going to buy one. And that was the Honda PC800 Pacific Coast. So I went to this guy and he's just like me, someone who likes to experience stuff and maybe trade a bit. And he had it and I said, no, well, let's go for a test ride. And he took a test ride on my Pegaso and I went on his Pacific Coast, and the Pacific Coast was worth a bit less than the Pegaso at the time. I sat on it and I was like, oh, but this is fun. It's weird, it's completely different, it's much heavier than anything I had ridden before. But I enjoyed it. So we traded with no cash, we just exchanged papers, and I had a Pacific Coast, and this is still my commuter. This is still my own personal bike. I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. If anybody watches this video, I might do an English video about just the Pacific Coast and I'll show you why. I think it's great. It's just awesome. Question is, where does it go here? Because I think it's great, But I do think, if I'm honest, the Strada was a lot more fun on a windy road. So if I put them next to each other, you know, if it's raining, I'll take the Pacific Coast all day. If it's cold, I'll take the Pacific Coast. But on every other day, I might actually, I rode the Aprilia in the rain and it was fine. You just need a good suit. That's all. So yeah, I'll put it below the Strada, but barely, very barely. Then Corona hit and I was a bit bored. We didn't go anywhere. And I remembered my dad had a red Yamaha Diversion 600 and I found one very, very cheaply. That needed a little bit of work, but the sort of work that I could do. So I bought me a Yamaha Diversion, a red one, and I reupholstered the seat. I closed some holes in the exhaust, plugged them, I should say, and I sold it as quick as I could because it was the most boring bike I ever ridden. And sorry, Dad, all the way at the bottom, easily. I don't want that bike. It's good, it won't break. I don't want it. But it sort of triggered something in me that said, I want to figure out what my next step is. What comes after the Pacific Coast? And I thought sort of Pacific Coasty. Of course, people are looking at Pan-Europeans. Honda Pan-European is a great bike. I haven't ridden it, but you know, it's a very logical next step after a Pacific Coast, either that or a Goldwing. But I found one that intrigued me, and that's the Honda CTX. There's a 700 version and a 1300 version, and I rode on the 1300 one, and I like it. It's weird because it's a detuned version of the 1300. It's got huge handlebars, and it's sort of chopperish in a way, but it's very nice, and I like the look. It has a very weird headlight. It's a good bike. I'm tempted to maybe one day buy it when I don't need to commute with it. I think it's too wide to commute in the Netherlands because I do want to split lanes from time to time. That's why I wouldn't buy it. But I think it's a fun, interesting bike. So I think I'll definitely buy a KLR one day, and I just might buy a CTX. That's sort of the thing, because these probably not, except the Pegaso if I need it. But I like the CTX, even though it's not the right bike in a way. It's the same. Actually, I would love to ride the DN01, the scooterish, long, sleddish one, right? And there's the other one, the Honda made the really little one that looks like a bike from Akira. I'd like to try that one as well. It's called a Vulcan? No, I don't remember. If you know, please post it and we'll figure it out. Then there was the DCT Tour by Honda, and I got to ride the Afrika Twin, the new one. And it was a DCT one, and I have to admit, I spent an hour riding on it, mostly figuring out the DCT. And I didn't much like it until the very end of the test ride. So if I were to buy one, I probably wouldn't buy one with the DCT, even though at the end of the test ride, I could feel I was getting used to it. So a very, very capable bike. The thing I really liked about it is I took it from the lot onto the street, straight into traffic. And we got stopped and the bridge was open. And I could see I would have to wait for 10 minutes. And I'm like, I'm on an Afrika Twin. I don't want to wait 10 minutes. So I took it across the curb and went the other way. There's like within 5 minutes of stepping onto the bike, I took it across a curb and just went the other way, it was very confidence inspiring. It was a very fun bike. It's a big, heavy bike, but I would ride it all day. But it's not an easy one to place. See, I love my TDM. I think the KLR is interesting. The CTX is cool. But if it was, would I take it? It's definitely above this line, sort of, right? I would love to own an Afrika Twin. But I'm not sure I'd buy it, you know? So I'm putting it below the CTX because I'm more prone to buying the weird bike than the practical one. That'll do anything, you know? And it's got so much electronics, maybe a bit too much for me. And while test riding, I did a test on a pretty modern Versys 650, which of course is the same engine as this one, the ER6N. And I thought I'd like it because, to be honest, the Versys and the Afrika Twin, whenever I see them riding, I see one on the road and I hear the engine and I'm like, oh, that runs nice. It's one of those bikes that passes me and I'm like, oh, that runs nice. I like the sound of it. I like the rhythm. And I sat on it and I rode it and I was bored, so bored. I didn't like it. It feels to me like they're taking a 2-cylinder and making it into something that rides more like a 4-cylinder or something. I didn't like it. So, yeah, I'll put it above the ER6N because it's more comfortable. But that's all. Because it's more comfortable for me. I rode it in Ada at a Moto Veda, and I told the guy from the shop, the owner, I told him that was my feeling about this, and I was like, yeah, it's bland, it's boring. And he said, how about this? And he had a V85 TT Moto Guzzi, and he said, take that. You know, it was the Kawasaki day, but he said, take the Moto Guzzi and go have a ride, which is great. Thank you very much. That was a lot more fun. I'm not sure it's my bike, you know. It's very shaky, it's very clunky, it's very raw in a way, the Moto Guzzi. But it's a lot more fun than a Versys, so I think it goes around about the same as the Afrika Twin, I think. I'm not sure I'd ever buy it. I'd buy an Afrika Twin before a Moto Guzzi, I think. Even though I'm not sure. It has a drive shaft. I love my drive shaft on the PC800. So, yeah, well, no, Afrika Twin, I think it's so much prettier. The Afrika Twin, I'll put the Afrika Twin on top. Yeah. Right, another test ride. I forgot to print it, so I wrote it. Indian Chieftain. Really big engine, I think 1600 cc's. I had a big test ride on it. Has a radio, has navigation, has everything. Yeah, it's a fine bike. It's weird that you have to do the indicators with both hands. Very strange. I would never buy it. I think it goes here. You know, I'd buy it before an SV650, but just because it's more bike, you know, but I'm not that enthusiastic. Then I reached out to the Moto Fit in Veenendaal. Moto Fit is they do mostly maintenance, but they sell some bikes too, and started to do a few reviews for them. And the first one was a Ducati Monster S2R. It's 800cc. Great bike. If you like the SV650, then the S2R is awesome. Very comfortable. No need trouble at all. Nice sound, great ride, really good. So yeah, it goes above the Chieftain. But I don't think I'd buy a naked very quickly. If you want like a very capable naked, it's better than the SV650 definitely. But I don't think I personally would ever buy a Monster. You know, I'd be more partial to a multi-strada or something like that. You know, not the Monster. But I loved it. I think it's still for sale. So if you're in the market for one, go have a look at the Moto Fit. Next one I rode was the Yamaha FJR 1300. It's classic, of course. Would be a good follow-up to the Pacific Coast. Much more capable, a lot more horsepower, full fairing, trunks, all sorts of stuff. Didn't do anything for me. I'm not a 4-cylinder sort of person. So actually it goes like, oh, I like the naked Diversion better than the FJR. Do I like a CB500 better than FJR? Yes, I do. Okay, it goes above the red bikini fairing old Diversion, but only just. I don't need to ride an FJR, even though it's an incredibly capable bike. It's awesome. But no, thank you. Then Of course, if you like an SV650, you might like a VStrom 650 because it's the same engine, which I haven't ridden, but I did ride its big brother, the DL1000, a pretty new one. That blew me away. It is so powerful and so quick. I think it's actually a bit too much. I think the Afrika Twin was easier to handle than the VStrom. This was way more aggressive. I didn't expect it. I'd buy it before a Monster, definitely. But these are more my sort of style above it. Very, very capable bike. Really, really good. A friend of mine has one and is going to travel on it. It's just awesome. But I'm looking a bit more towards smaller bikes personally. So, yeah, I think that's fair. And finally, I rode a Versys 1000. Now, you would say I've been saying 4 cylinders are boring. But I like this a lot better than the 650, I have to say. And it was heavy. And it was very quite fast. But yeah, goes higher than you'd think. I think this is my... I would say it's my top 4-cylinder bike, but the CTX, which is maybe not the best bike, is I like that more. Afrika Twin more, definitely. I would pick the VStrom over it, but then the Versys, so they're neighbours and not for no reason, you know. I think one of the interesting parts was let me think, what was it again? I found it very hard to do a cone slalom on the DL1000, but I could do a U-turn very easily, and on the Versys it was reverse. Don't know why. Maybe because of the 21-inch front wheel, because this one had a 19, I think. So that's my list for now. I'm gonna have a look later to see and compare it to the one I recorded in Dutch, because I expect it's different, because it's been a month or two maybe even when I recorded the one in Dutch. So this is my English list. I'm gonna put it on my website maybe, but I'm definitely putting this on the channel. If you think I'm really missing something and I should have a ride on something, let me know. If you have a bike you want to invite me to ride on, then yes please. We're gonna see if we get any views and if we can have a bit of fun and maybe do a review on the Pacific coast. I know there's a review coming on the Dutch channel for a Yamaha Versys, for instance, if it hasn't been sold. And I hope there's going to be a Honda SLR on the way, and for one of those two I'll try to do an English language one as well and post it on here. Please follow the website, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.